Hello and welcome to my review of Steven Universe Mindful Education. Unfortunately, Steven Universe has decided to do a serious episode, and as a reviewer, I have to take serious episodes and review them seriously. To begin with, I want to give you some context on my point of view, personal experience, and the lens through which I view this episode. And I also want to talk about the scale that I basically review things on. Okay, so first off, if you've seen my QA videos, you know that I am, or was at least, a for-real Army soldier. Now, I was lucky enough to spend my entire military career here in the United States. Never went anywhere exciting, never did anything exciting, and I'm extremely grateful for that. However, I had the opportunity to be educated on and meet people who do suffer from the mental condition known as post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. I've also been lucky enough to have taken a number of classes on the psychology of law enforcement, and the kind of mental damage that profession can do on people who work in the police, military, emergency services, and security work. I've also had the opportunity to talk to people who've been institutionalized. So let me tell you that psychological damage is just as real and terrible as physical damage. Now I want to talk about the scale that I tend to grade things on. I take a show, movie, video game, or what have you as seriously as it takes itself. To talk about one of the other shows that I review on a regular basis, My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, well, that show doesn't really have any significant ambitions beyond being a bunch of quaint little fables. They don't deal with really extreme issues, and Steven Universe, for better or for worse, wants to talk about those things, and when it does, I need to do them the courtesy of taking them seriously. So in this review, I'm not going to be cute, I'm not going to be jokey, I'm not going to throw up a bunch of pictures to make you laugh, we're going to deal with this. The overall quality of mindful education really can't be stated until it's put in its overall context. Psychological conditions are lingering, by and large. They take time or trauma to form, and they don't go away quickly. So this episode could be very good indeed, as I think it has the potential to be, depending on how the series going forward chooses to do with this new aspect of Steven. Now I want to get a little into what post-traumatic stress disorder is, because, like it or not, that's the subject that they've chosen to tackle, even if they didn't entirely mean to. PTSD is a natural reaction to an unnatural event. When you go through a traumatic event, there are three possible ways for you to deal with it. One is for it to have absolutely no effect on you. This happens. There are some people that can just let it go. It's also possible that it will trouble you to some extent, but not seriously impact your life. And the third possibility is for a serious event where you faced the possibility of serious bodily harm or injury and even death to completely traumatize you, to throw a complete and utter shadow over every day of your life. This is also a natural reaction, and it's the most tragic. Now, it seems like in this episode of Steven Universe, they're not talking entirely about the most severe versions of mental trauma. They're talking about the kind of things that make you feel bad, and then you have to deal with them. And I'll say that the advice they give in this episode is very good. Garnet and Stevonnie sing a very nice song that's basically all about not repressing your feelings of fear, guilt, and anger. Because repressing your feelings is never healthy. Understanding what you feel, why you feel that way, and not trying to simply repress it is the most healthy way to deal with really dark negative emotions. And even just negative emotions in general. So I would say in the advice department, Steven Universe Mindful Education deserves all due credit. Now let's talk about how they actually portray what Steven is going through. And this is where I simply have to disagree with them. Steven is portrayed as feeling only remorse for his actions. Now, I can only look at this episode through my lived experience, and what I've heard from others. The kind of things that Steven has gone through, they reference One Eye, what happened to Jasper, and Bismuth. All three of those people attempted to murder Steven. Just unequivocally. Now, I'm quoting my drill sergeant when I say, you will never feel anger in your life until someone tries to kill you. So I would say saying that Steven only feels remorse is a really unnatural portrayal of someone dealing with the kind of things that he seems to be dealing with. Another emotion which I feel like is almost certainly present in what Steven would have gone through that's been left out is fear. In life-threatening situations, fear is the natural emotion. That's just how human beings, and all animals really, are hardwired. I mentioned earlier that my overall verdict on this episode is completely dependent on the context that we have for Steven's personality going forward. When you're dealing with issues like this, there's almost never a clean resolution. I feel like this has to be brought up again and again. Not in any significant way, but this does need to be a background detail and something that Steven is going to be bringing to a lot of what he's doing going forward. Really traumatic events leave permanent mental impressions. So this is a fact of how human beings remember things. There are two good ways to embed a memory. One is by repetition. Roses are red. Roses are red. Roses are red. You're going to remember that. Now, let's just say that someone kicks in your door, puts a gun in your face, and screams at the top of their lungs, "Roses are red." You will also remember that. And it's going to be interesting going forward, seeing how the Crooniverse decides to deal with this new facet. Sorry, I said I wasn't going to be cute, of Steven's personality. But at the moment, and for what it is, I'm going to give Steven Universe Mindful Education a 3.5 out of 5. It's good enough. The advice is good. I don't know if Steven's mental state really strikes me as 100% what I would think he would be like, or what it's reasonable for him to be like. But a decent showing nonetheless. Thank you for watching, and hopefully next week, circumstances will allow me to have a nice, fun Steven Universe review again.
Hey kids, today's show is brought to you by the letter 4 and the number potato! I'm a stupid private.